Okay, welcome back. This is Professor Rubio, and this is this week's project. It is charcoal drawing with reference. So you're going to print these out. There's three choices. And for this example, I want you to break it down into cones. So if you look at the drawing, these are just different cones that are long and skinny that make up the entire drawing. So what you want to do is look at the drawing, break it down into simple shapes like cones, and that'll give you a good idea of what to draw. So what I'm going to do first is gesture draw this with pencil just to practice. Like always, you don't want to skip this step. It's part of the assignment, so you're going to turn in your gesture drawing on another sheet of paper. And then once you feel like you're ready, you can switch to the white paper and go from there and use charcoal. So you're going to turn in two images. Okay, so I'm done gesture drawing this, and these are different charcoals that I'm going to use. I have a willow charcoal, and that's really light. It's almost like a burnt stick, and it's going to give you a medium value. Alright, and then the other charcoal I have is compressed charcoal. It's like a block that has been compressed into a square shape. And I have another piece of charcoal here. It's just a different shape. But if you look close on some of the charcoal, they have letters and numbers just like your pencils. So right here I have a 6B, and the other one I can't tell, but it's dark. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to prime the paper, and I'm going to take my willow charcoal and lightly cover the page with charcoal. If you don't have willow charcoal, don't worry. Just use any charcoal you have and lightly go over the surface of the paper. You don't have to have willow charcoal. Okay, from here I'm just going to get a regular paper towel and move the charcoal around to give me a very consistent medium gray across the entire paper. Don't press down too hard because you'll ruin the paper. You just want to spread around the charcoal in a light application. So make sure that you get all the edges. You can go over it a few times, and I'm using light pressure, and I'm using light pressure with the paper towel as well. So you want to prime your paper first. This is going to give you a sense of depth. That way when you go back to put in shadows, you don't really have to worry about it. It's going to look 3D already. Okay, you should end up with something like this. And go ahead and start looking at your reference, and you're going to do the same thing that you did earlier, but with charcoal. You're going to start to lightly, very lightly, gesture draw the image, but make sure that it's super light. We don't want thick lines. We just want something that we can blend later, and it's a light application. So if you have dark outlines on this assignment, you're going to have to do it over because it kind of destroys the 3D illusion if you have dark outlines. So look at the quality of my lines and try to mimic that. Have very light pressure. And notice that everything is basically a triangle. It's almost like a long cone. So I'm going to go through here and try to get all the different shapes that I see That's a triangle, and the one next to it. So if you see a shape, try to mimic it. And notice how I'm holding the charcoal. It's not like a pencil. I'm not holding it like a pencil. I'm holding it with my forefinger and my thumb. That way, if I need to, I can press down really hard, or if I need to back up, I can. And that position allows me to do that easier. Alright, so as I go through this, the step number 1 is to gesture draw. Step number 2, you want to prime your paper. Step 3, you want to gesture draw again, like I'm doing right now, and just give an overall sense of, where the shapes are. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at all my darks, all the dark areas, and I'm going to put them into my drawing. The reason I start with darks is, for me, they're easier to see, right? So whatever you can see that's dark, go ahead and color it in, and you can use a little bit more pressure at this point. So if you look at this line, they are pretty straight. Don't try to make it look wavy. That kind of looks fake. So the drawing, the reference that I'm going to give you, those are really straight lines. And I know you think in your head like it's fabric, I got to make it look wavy. Try not to do that. It's going to get you in a bad place. So these are straight lines. Gravity is pulling them tight to make them look like, to make it look like it's hanging from a nail. All right? And it's not waving in the wind or anything like that. So try to stay away from wavy lines just because you're dealing with fabric. I get it all the time. I get drawings that are wavy and the reference has no wavy lines at all. And so for this assignment, it's more like an academic approach to drawing. You're really trying to draw what you see, and it's not really an interpretation. You're really trying to draw what's actually there. You're recording the facts. And obviously there's going to be some shapes that are a little different, and that's fine. I get that. But if it's, over the top with waves and, different amounts of folds and stuff like that, that's when you get into a place where I feel like you're not really paying attention to the drawing and the reference, and you're kind of just, doing your own thing. So make sure you study the reference, almost like you're writing a paper and they give you a book to write the paper on. You want to stick to the facts that you're given, and so treat this reference in that same way. Try to stick with what you see, and if you mess up, that's fine. Just start over. It's okay. At this point, we are trying to put in the shadows, and it almost looks really good. I mean, at this point, you can really tell, like, that is fabric and it's hanging on a wall and there's a shadow. So just from the gesture draw and putting in the darks, we're almost halfway done. The next thing we got to do is blend this thing, and this is part where you can use your fingers. You can, smudge. You want to smudge along the line, up and down, and you want to use very light pressure. So I get students that have a heavy hand and they want to smash that charcoal into the paper and it doesn't move after that. So make sure you have a really light hand. That way you could spread the charcoal particles around rather than deep into the paper where it doesn't want to move anymore. All right, so have a light hand. And I'm trying to just go over the line where the charcoal stops and the paper is. That way I can create like a short gradient from dark to light in each spot. And once I do this around, you don't want to go sideways, you want to go up and down. Once I do this around the entire image, it's gonna almost be there. You'll start to see the illusion of fabric in a 3D space. So go around your drawing, try to blend all the areas together, and don't cross the lines to where you mess up that straight up and down line and then you got a cross fade where you smushed your finger. Try to get away from that, but go around, try to blend everything, and if it's up and down, go up and down. If it's a shadow, you can do circles, but I'm using very light pressure around the image. Okay, I'm gonna get my eraser here and just kind of fix, I mean, my charcoal, and fix some lines that just need to be a little darker based on what I see in the reference. So there's a shadow there that needs to be darker. Go ahead and put it in. If you notice things after the fact, it's okay to go back and try to fix it. Alright, so now this area is resolved. It looked like, I don't know what was happening there, but it looks like a piece of fabric that's all connected, but just has dips or like highs and lows within it. So some areas are in shadow, some areas are catching light. So just go through and keep blending all the areas together. And notice at the top the corners are kind of unresolved. You really want to resolve those and go back and try to get them to look like the reference. And I'll show you how to do that. I have my eraser now and I'm just trying to like really shape things, and I'm gonna go in to the drawing itself and I'm gonna add the next step, which is the highlights. So if you look at the reference, there's a lot of light hitting areas, and you can just pull that eraser down and it will create a highlight for you. And it's only going to work if you didn't smash that charcoal into the paper. So that's one reason why you gotta have a light hand when you're smudging and blending. So this area didn't get resolved, but there is a highlight there. So I'm gonna just press really hard with my eraser, and I'm gonna bring that highlight out. So just from one pass, you can see it looks like a highlight. It looks really good, and I'm pretty much done with that area. So I'm gonna move up here and really look at my reference and see what's going on, and put in that really harsh light that it's catching. And these are just straight lines I'm drawing with an eraser. And you can do some blending, but you don't want to blend it too much to where it goes back to being gray. You just want to leave some of that highlight there. Alright, there's another highlight there. Just shaping things to make it look nice. Alright, inside this area there's a lot of light. So if you have a smaller eraser, it's good to use that in those small areas. I'm using a fat eraser right now, but that's okay. So I'm just looking at where on the reference does it have really light areas, and I'm just trying to put in those light areas with the eraser. And as you can see, it's really working. I mean, it's looking like a drape. So I know some of you might have packs of charcoal that came with white. So instead of the eraser, you can use your white charcoal if you wanted to. That's going to give you a lot more powder on the paper, and it might be a lot more messy, but that's okay. I mean, if you want to use white instead of an eraser, that's fine. Just know you're going to not have a lot of control over the mess, but that's okay. So I'm going to include 3 references, and I want you to just choose one. Choose one that you feel comfortable with and draw that one with charcoal on white paper. Make sure you do a gesture drawing before that, just to practice, and turn that in as well on newsprint or on white paper. So you're going to have a gesture drawing and a final fabric drawing. Alright. After you put in the highlights, you're going to have to go back and fix whatever you took away. So if you took away too much, then go back, use an eraser, use charcoal again, and just put things back that you lost, like I'm doing here. I'm adding the wrinkle with the really small eraser. It's just cutting across with an eraser to add like a wrinkle. And you can add smaller areas of highlights that you see. So they're not just these big areas that are long and straight. Sometimes there are weird shapes within those areas that are just smaller, but they're also highlights. Alright, so I just added a little bit of charcoal right next to that tiny highlight just to make it look like it is a wrinkle. And I'm going to go through and just touch up some things with my eraser and with my charcoal. And I'm trying to bring back those corners to make them look like they are connected. That's real important. So I do that right here. And now they're connected. So that's the finished drawing. Use those same steps for whatever reference that you choose. And good luck. Make sure you participate in the discussion as well. Have a good week. Be safe.